I was accidentally sent to the Underworld. Then the death god became obsessed with my little garden. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, it is free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic and emotional stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching from and what time it is where you are right now. We love seeing how far these stories travel and knowing who is joining us today. Now let's begin today's story. The dead do not grow gardens, the clerk told me, which would have been useful information before the first green leaf appeared outside my window. Rowan Ashford remembered falling asleep in his apartment after an ordinary Tuesday, rain tapping against the glass and a packet of wildflower seeds sitting in his coat pocket. He did not remember dying. Yet when he opened his eyes, he was standing beneath a black-violet sky in a silent hall where silver lanterns floated without chains and pale mist moved across the floor like slow water. A thin man named Elias Ward sat behind an enormous desk, staring at a book called The Ledger of Souls. Rowan Ashford, 23 years old, Elias said. Deceased. Rowan blinked. That seems unlikely. Elias checked again. His expression changed. Actually, this is unusual. Rowan leaned forward. Unusual as in I can go home? Unusual as in your record says you died tomorrow. Silence followed. Elias turned several pages, then summoned 2 more clerks. None could explain how a living soul had arrived in the underworld before his recorded death. Until the death court reviewed the error, Rowan could neither return home nor continue deeper into the realm. He was assigned an abandoned cottage near the edge of the administrative district, where the streets were gray, the trees were colorless, and even the air seemed tired. Rowan refused to spend his uncertain future staring at walls. Behind the cottage, he discovered a neglected patch of soil, barely 12 feet wide. Elias laughed when Rowan asked for gardening tools. Nothing grows here. Has anyone tried? For several thousand years. That was not my question. Rowan borrowed a rusted shovel, loosened the hard soil, redirected water from a dripping stone channel, and mixed fallen gray leaves into the ground. Then he remembered the wildflower seeds still inside his coat pocket. Somehow, they had crossed worlds with him. He planted 6. This is ridiculous, he told himself. Still, working with his hands gave him something the underworld had not offered since his arrival. Choice. The next morning, Rowan stepped outside and stopped. A tiny green shoot had broken through the gray earth. It was no taller than half an inch, but against the lifeless landscape it looked brighter than any jewel. Warmth spread across Rowan's fingertips. For one impossible second, golden white light moved beneath his skin. Somewhere far beneath the ground, a bell rang once. Rowan crouched beside the sprout, fascinated. He did not notice the tall man standing beyond the garden fence until the surrounding mist became perfectly still. The stranger wore black trimmed with silver. His hair was dark, his eyes were pale silver, and his presence carried such absolute quiet that even the floating lanterns seemed dimmer around him. Rowan recognized him from the warnings Elias had given him. Lucian Graves. The Death God. The most powerful alpha in the underworld. Every sensible soul avoided him. Lucian, however, was not looking at Rowan. He was staring at the tiny plant. Slowly, he stepped closer. The green shoot should have withered beneath death resonance. Instead, a second leaf unfolded. Something like disbelief crossed Lucian's usually unreadable face. Who are you? He asked. Rowan Ashford. Lucian's gaze shifted toward the soil, then to Rowan's faintly glowing hand. That is not what I asked. Rowan stood. Then ask a better question. No one had spoken to Lucian Graves that way in centuries. The death god approached the fence, and stopped exactly 1 foot from the first living plant his realm had produced in 3,000 years. A strange golden symbol briefly appeared beneath Rowan's collar before fading again. Lucian saw it. His expression changed completely. What did you bring into my world? Rowan looked at his tiny garden. 6 wildflower seeds. Lucian stared at him. Rowan smiled. And apparently a paperwork problem. Lucian returned the next morning, although he insisted he was conducting an investigation. Rowan found the death god standing outside the fence before sunrise, studying the tiny green shoot as if it were evidence in a complicated case. "You came back," Rowan said. "This is my realm," Lucian replied. "Technically, you are the one who came here." Rowan decided that was probably the closest a death god came to admitting curiosity. By then, 3 more seeds had sprouted. Rowan had spent the previous evening experimenting with the strange gray soil. Water alone disappeared too quickly, so he mixed the earth with crumbled leaves from the colorless trees and small pieces of porous stone that held moisture longer. It was not magic, at least not entirely. It was observation, patience, and a willingness to keep changing what did not work. Lucian stepped through the gate. Immediately, the air cooled. Rowan expected the seedlings to collapse beneath the death god's presence. Instead, every tiny leaf turned toward him. Lucian stopped. "They should fear me. They are plants. Everything living responds to death resonance." Rowan crouched beside the nearest sprout. "Maybe they do respond. Maybe everyone has misunderstood what the response means." Lucian looked down at him. "You question everything. Only things people tell me I am supposed to accept without evidence." For several seconds Lucian said nothing. Then he returned the following day. And the day after that. Each time, he invented a new reason. He needed to inspect the soil. He needed to confirm the plants were not dangerous. He needed to determine whether Rowan's presence was disrupting the underworld. Rowan politely pretended to believe him. By the end of the week, the 6 seedlings had become a small circle of green, and Lucian had somehow developed the habit of arriving precisely when Rowan began working. Rowan learned things about him in fragments. Lucian had governed the passage of souls for thousands of years. He remembered civilizations that no longer had names. He could identify every kind of death resonance, yet he had never planted anything. "Have you ever had a garden?" Rowan asked. Lucian gave him a look suggesting the question was absurd. "Nothing grows near me." Rowan handed him a small wooden scoop. "Then today seems like a good day to test that theory." Lucian stared at the tool. "You want the death god to move dirt. About 6 inches of it. People have built temples to avoid asking me for less." Rowan smiled. "I do not have a temple." Lucian should have walked away. Instead, he knelt beside Rowan. Together they loosened the soil around the healthiest seedling. The instant Lucian's bare fingers accidentally brushed the earth beside Rowan's hand, golden white light flashed beneath Rowan's skin. Silver light answered from Lucian's fingertips. Neither man moved. The 2 colors touched without destroying each other. For one heartbeat, they became a soft blue glow. Then the garden changed. A white bud appeared on the smallest plant, unfolding slowly until a perfect flower faced the dark underworld sky. Lucian stared at it without speaking. Rowan expected suspicion, perhaps another interrogation. What he saw instead was wonder so unguarded that the ancient death god suddenly seemed less frightening and far more lonely. Lucian reached toward the flower, then stopped before touching it. "May I?" he asked. Rowan nodded. Lucian gently touched one white petal. It remained alive. Somewhere beyond the garden, a sound drifted through the silent streets. Rowan turned, certain he had imagined it. Then it came again, light and clear. A bird was singing. Lucian slowly stood. "There have been no birds in this district for 3,000 years. Rowan looked from the flower to their still glowing hands. "Then perhaps your realm is trying to tell you something." Lucian's silver eyes remained fixed on Rowan. "No," he said quietly. "I think it is trying to tell me something about you." By the 10th day, Rowan's 6 wildflowers had become the most talked about place in the underworld. Souls began appearing at the garden fence shortly after dawn, first one at a time, then in quiet groups. Some had waited decades for passage to their next destination. Others had forgotten what sunlight felt like. Rowan noticed that whenever they sat near the flowers, the gray mist around them softened and their restless expressions grew peaceful. He could have closed the gate and protected his impossible little miracle, but that felt wrong. "A garden is better when people can enjoy it," he told Lucian. The death god stood beneath a colorless tree, watching Rowan build a bench from discarded boards. "People here are accustomed to boundaries. Then they could practice opening gates." Lucian almost smiled. Rowan placed a simple wooden sign beside the entrance, "Everyone welcome." Soon the neglected 12-foot patch became something larger. An elderly soul named Margaret taught Rowan how to redirect water from an underground channel. A quiet carpenter named Thomas repaired the fence. 2 children awaiting their family planted smooth stones around the flowers. Rowan gave everyone a task based on what they could do, not what the underworld had decided they were worth. Within days, laughter appeared in a district that had forgotten the sound. Lucian continued visiting, although nobody believed his inspections anymore. The feared Alpha would arrive in his black and silver coat, stand silently beside the gate, and remain until Rowan finished working. At first, the souls scattered whenever he approached. Rowan noticed. "You could try saying hello?" Lucian looked offended by the suggestion. "They know who I am." "That is exactly the problem." The following morning, Lucian entered while Margaret was watering the flowers. She froze. Lucian hesitated, then said, "Good morning." Margaret nearly dropped the watering can. Rowan covered his smile with one hand. Something changed after that. Slowly, the souls stopped seeing Lucian only as the figure who represented their final journey. Lucian, in return, began seeing them as people rather than names recorded in a ledger. One evening, Rowan found him repairing a loose board in the fence without being asked. "Careful," Rowan said. "Someone might think you like it here." Lucian tightened the board. "The structural condition offended me." "Of course." Their eyes met, and this time Lucian did smile, briefly but unmistakably. Rowan felt an unexpected warmth that had nothing to do with sacred life resonance. Before he could examine that feeling, the ground beneath the garden trembled. Everyone became silent. The 6 wildflowers began glowing golden white. Their roots spread through the gray earth in luminous lines, joining beneath the center of the garden. Rowan stepped backward as the soil rose gently upward. A green shoot emerged, but this was no flower. Within seconds it reached Rowan's waist, then his shoulders, then stretched nearly 12 feet into the air. Branches unfolded beneath the dark sky, covered in silver-green leaves. Lucian moved beside Rowan. That tree should not exist. Golden markings appeared across the trunk. Rowan recognized none of them, but Lucian did. His expression lost every trace of amusement. He approached slowly and brushed dust from one symbol, a crown surrounded by 7 rays of light. "I have seen this mark once," Lucian said. "Where?" Lucian stared at Rowan as though seeing him for the first time. "In a sealed chamber beneath the death court. It belonged to a royal house erased from every official record more than 3,000 years ago." Warmth spread beneath Rowan's collar. The hidden golden symbol appeared again, brighter than before. Lucian looked from Rowan's skin to the matching crest on the tree. "House Elysian," he whispered. The ancient tree answered with a clear bell-like tone, and words of golden light slowly formed across its trunk. Lucian read them aloud. "The garden remembers its prince." The words on the ancient tree remained visible long after every soul in the garden had fallen silent. Rowan stared at the glowing sentence, searching his borrowed memories and finding nothing. "I am not a prince," he said at last. Lucian did not answer immediately. His silver eyes remained fixed on the crest beneath Rowan's collar, where the same 7-rayed crown shimmered against his skin. "Then someone went to extraordinary lengths to make you forget that you were." The following morning, Lucian brought Rowan beneath the death court to meet Silas Monroe, an elderly scholar who had spent centuries studying records too old for the official archives. Silas needed only one look at Rowan's mark before his hands began trembling. "House Elysian," he whispered. "The keepers of sacred life." Rowan disliked how quickly everyone seemed prepared to turn a symbol into an identity. "I was Rowan Ashford before that tree appeared, and I am still Rowan Ashford now. Lucian stood beside him. Then we discover the truth without deciding who you must become. Rowan looked at him, quietly grateful. Silas opened a sealed archive containing fragments rescued before House Elysian vanished more than 3,000 years ago. The records described a royal line capable of producing sacred life resonance, a pure power said to preserve balance between living souls and the underworld. The final Elysian heir had disappeared on the same night the family's history was removed from the ledger. Rowan listened carefully, but something bothered him more than the legend. "Show me my arrival record." Elias brought the current ledger of souls. Rowan compared his entry with older examples. His supposed death date was still tomorrow, yet his transfer authorization had been approved 3 days earlier. "That makes no sense," Elias said. "It makes perfect sense if the date is not the mistake." Rowan pointed to a second detail. "Look at the soul identification number. Every entry on this page begins with the same century code except mine." Silas leaned closer. Rowan continued. "And this authorization signature was copied." "How can you tell?" Lucian asked. "The pressure marks are identical. Real signatures vary slightly. Someone reproduced this one." Rowan had spent his first life believing careful observation was ordinary. Here, it suddenly felt like another kind of power. Elias checked the original registry and went pale. Rowan's identification number belonged to no recently deceased soul. It belonged to an archived classification sealed thousands of years earlier. Silas retrieved a separate volume. When the number appeared on its brittle pages, nobody spoke. Elysian Royal Line. Heir status lost. Rowan felt the room tilt beneath him. He remembered another world, another life, another name that had always felt entirely his. Yet this body carried memories too, fragmented impressions of childhood corridors, golden sunlight, and a lullaby he had never understood. "So I was not accidentally sent here," Rowan said. Lucian's expression hardened. "No." Rowan looked again at the falsified authorization. Someone had deliberately redirected him into the underworld before his recorded death. The question was why. A soft, golden light suddenly appeared between the pages of the ancient volume. Hidden writing emerged beneath Rowan's identification number. Silas translated it slowly. "When the Lost Prince crosses the boundary, the root gate will recognize him." Lucian became perfectly still. "What is the root gate?" Silas closed the book as if the words themselves frightened him. "A door House Elysian sealed before they disappeared. No death god has ever been able to open it." Rowan thought of the ancient tree growing from his little garden. Its roots had appeared overnight, spreading deeper than anyone could measure. "Where is the gate?" Silas looked toward the ceiling, directly in the direction of Rowan's cottage. "According to the oldest map, beneath the land where your garden is growing." Before Rowan could speak, a black envelope materialized above the table and dropped silently onto the open ledger. Lucian recognized the silver seal immediately. "Victor Thorne." Rowan opened the message. The order contained only one sentence. By authority of the Underworld Council, all unauthorized living growth was to be removed before the next bell. Rowan folded the paper carefully. Lucian watched him. "You are remarkably calm." Rowan stood. "I spent 10 days learning how to make 6 flowers grow in dead soil. If someone wants my garden gone, they can at least explain why they are afraid of it." Victor Thorne arrived before the next bell with 3 council officials and a document declaring Rowan's garden an unauthorized disturbance to the natural order. By then, nearly 40 souls had gathered around the little fence, and the ancient tree stood above them, like a green lantern beneath the black-violet sky. Victor looked at the flowers with the careful disgust of a man inspecting a dangerous mistake. "Living growth does not belong in the underworld," he said. Rowan remained beside the garden gate. "Why?" Victor seemed surprised by the question. "Because it has never belonged here. That explains tradition. It does not explain harm." Lucian stood several feet away, silent enough to make the officials visibly uncomfortable. Victor turned toward him. "Death God, surely you understand what this represents." Life and death must remain separate. I understand balance, Lucian replied. I have not yet seen evidence that 6 flowers threaten it. Rowan almost smiled. Victor produced records showing minor fluctuations in local death resonance since the garden appeared. Rowan had expected that. He asked Elias to bring another set of records, ones documenting the souls who visited the garden. 37 souls spent time here during the last 7 days, Rowan said. 29 showed reduced spiritual unrest afterward. 9 who had delayed passage for years voluntarily completed their processing. Administrative disturbances in this district decreased by nearly half. Victor's expression tightened. You are reducing sacred law to numbers. No. I am asking whether the law still serves the purpose it claims to protect. Rowan gestured toward the souls sitting peacefully beneath the ancient tree. If balance is the goal, then measure balance. Victor looked toward Lucian. He has influenced you. The accusation settled over the garden. Rowan understood what Victor was really suggesting. The Lost Prince had appeared, the Death God had begun questioning old rules, and therefore Rowan must somehow be controlling him. Lucian stepped forward, but Rowan spoke first. Ask him? Victor frowned. What? Ask Lucian whether I control him. Every gaze turned toward the Alpha. Lucian's silver eyes rested on Rowan before shifting to Victor. Rowan has never commanded me to protect this garden. Yet you stand beside him. Because he presented evidence, and because I agree with him. Rowan felt something warm beneath his ribs. Lucian was not defending him as a possession. He was defending his reasoning. Victor approached the nearest white flower and extended his hand. Death resonance gathered around his fingers, but the flower did not wilt. Instead, its petals opened wider. A golden-white glow traveled through the soil toward the ancient tree. The souls gasped softly. Rowan felt the same sacred warmth beneath his skin. Life is not replacing death, he said. Look at the roots. Elias crouched near the tree. Silver death resonance flowed upward from the ground while golden life resonance traveled downward from the branches. Where they met, the colors became pale blue. Silas, watching from the fence, whispered, Balance. Victor went silent. Lucian walked to Rowan's side. The removal order has no demonstrated basis, he said. I will not enforce it. Victor's composure finally cracked. You do not understand what you are protecting. Rowan caught the wording immediately. Then you know more about this garden than you admitted. Victor looked toward the ancient tree. For one brief moment, fear appeared in his eyes. The ground answered with a deep bell-like tone. Roots moved beneath the soil, not violently, but with deliberate purpose, tracing a glowing circle nearly 20 feet across. At its center, an ancient stone staircase slowly emerged from beneath the garden. Silas stared at the symbols carved into the first step. The root gate. Victor stepped backward. Lucian noticed. So did Rowan. You knew it was here, Rowan said. Victor said nothing. Rowan approached the staircase, but Lucian gently caught his attention without touching him. If you go down there, it should be because you choose to. Rowan looked at the garden, the waiting souls, and the impossible flowers that had begun all of this. Then he looked at Lucian. I choose to know why someone sent me here. Together, they descended beneath the roots. At the bottom waited a circular door bearing 2 ancient symbols, the 7-rayed crown of House Elysian and a silver crest Rowan had never seen before. Lucian had. His face became unreadable. That is my mark, he said. Golden light awakened across Rowan's hand. Silver light answered. Across Lucian's. The sealed door opened, revealing words carved into the chamber beyond. Rowan read them slowly. Life and death were never enemies. They were guardians of the same passage. The chamber beneath the root gate felt older than the Underworld itself. Rowan and Lucian walked between stone pillars covered in carvings of 2 figures standing side by side, one surrounded by golden leaves and the other by silver stars. Neither figure bowed to the other. Neither stood above the other. At the center of the sanctuary rested a circular table carved with the same pale blue light Rowan had seen beneath his garden. When he approached, the seven-rayed crown on his skin warmed, and words appeared across the stone. Sacred life does not oppose sacred death. Life gives meaning to passage. Death gives meaning to life. Lucian read the next inscription in silence. His expression changed. My order was created to guard yours. Rowan moved closer. The ancient record described House Elysian as keepers of sacred life, while the first death gods served as their equal partners. Together, they maintained the natural passage of souls between realms. Sacred life resonance was never meant to return the dead to life or make anyone immortal. Its purpose was purification, renewal, and balance. Rowan thought of the souls who became peaceful near his flowers. The garden had not been breaking the laws of death. It had been restoring something the Underworld had forgotten. Another section revealed why House Elysian disappeared. An ancient empire had demanded control over sacred life, believing it could use the power to decide who remained in the living world and who crossed into death. House Elysian refused. Soon afterward, its name vanished from official history, the root gate was sealed, and the connection between life keepers and death gods was deliberately forgotten. Lucian placed one hand against the silver crest. New writing appeared beneath it. His alpha lineage had once been known as the Grave's Guardians, chosen because their death resonance naturally harmonized with Elysian's sacred life. That explains the flower, Rowan said. And the blue light. Lucian looked toward him. Compatibility. Not ownership. Never. The certainty in Lucian's answer made Rowan smile. They continued deeper until Rowan discovered a sealed glass panel containing a preserved page. The moment his fingers touched it, memories flashed through his mind: a sunlit palace, a woman singing the lullaby he remembered from childhood, and a golden door closing as someone whispered, "Find your way back when both realms are ready." Rowan stepped away, breathless. Lucian did not touch him. He simply remained close enough for Rowan to know he was there. "I remember her," Rowan whispered. "Not clearly, but I remember." Beneath the memory was something even stranger. Rowan's life in the human world had been real. His childhood, his apartment, his ordinary Tuesday, all of it. Yet somehow his soul had carried an older Elysian inheritance into that life, waiting for the right moment to awaken. "Then transmigration was not an accident," Lucian said. Rowan shook his head. "Neither was my return." A final inscription appeared on the wall. It described a failing seal beneath the Underworld, one that had once been maintained by life and death resonance together. Without House Elysian, generations of death gods had unknowingly sustained only half of it. Lucian stared at the words. "For 3,000 years, we thought the weakening was natural." Rowan understood why Victor had feared the garden. If the root gate reopened, the official history of the Underworld would collapse with it. Then Rowan found a smaller inscription hidden beneath the table. It described the method for restoring the seal completely. His relief lasted only seconds. The ancient process required the Elysian heir to pour all available sacred life resonance into the root gate. The final warning was unmistakable: the keeper might not survive the transfer. Rowan quietly covered the inscription with his hand before Lucian could read it. "What does it say?" Lucian asked. Rowan forced himself to look calm. "That the seal can be restored." Lucian studied his face for several seconds, and Rowan knew immediately that the death god did not believe he had told the whole truth. Before either man could speak again, the sanctuary trembled with a deep, resonant bell. Pale blue light disappeared from the walls. Above them, every flower in Rowan's garden closed at once. Then a voice emerged from the ancient stone, clear enough for both men to hear. "The final imbalance has begun. The Lost Prince must choose before the seventh bell." The first bell faded through the sanctuary, and Rowan knew exactly what the ancient warning expected him to do. He also knew he had no intention of telling Lucian the full price. "We should return to the garden," Rowan said. Lucian remained beside the stone table. "Show me the inscription you covered." Rowan tried to sound casual. "We have limited time," Which is why I am not wasting it pretending you suddenly became terrible at lying. Rowan looked at him. The death god extended one hand toward the hidden text but did not force Rowan aside. That restraint made the truth harder to conceal. Rowan slowly moved his hand. Lucian read the warning in silence. The second bell sounded before he finally spoke. No. The seal protects both realms. I understand what it protects. Then you understand why I have to consider it. Lucian's silver eyes sharpened. Consider it, yes. Decide alone, no. Rowan felt frustration rise inside him. If my power can prevent thousands of souls from suffering, how can I refuse? By recognizing that your life is not a resource simply because other people need something from you. Rowan went still. Lucian stepped closer, his voice quieter now. You question every law that treated souls as numbers. Do not become another law that treats Rowan Ashford as expendable. The third bell echoed through the chamber. Rowan looked down at the ancient instructions. In his first life, he had believed sacrifice was the purest proof of love. Now he saw the flaw in that belief. Choosing to disappear for someone could also mean denying them any voice in the choice. Then we need another solution, Rowan said. Lucian nodded. Together, they returned to the garden, where Silas, Elias, and dozens of waiting souls watched the ancient tree pulse between gold and silver. Rowan studied the roots instead of the branches. Every earlier phenomenon had followed the same pattern. Golden life resonance flowed downward. Silver death resonance flowed upward. Neither force created balance alone. The fourth bell rang. The old ritual is wrong, Rowan said. Silas stared at him. It is the only surviving ritual. It was written after House Elysian disappeared. That means it was written for a world where only one side of the partnership remained. Lucian understood first. They expected the Life Keeper to replace the missing death resonance. Rowan nodded. But you are here. They descended to the root gate as the fifth bell sounded. Rowan placed his palm against the golden crest. Lucian placed his against the silver one. Warm light traveled through Rowan's arm, but instead of releasing everything at once, he listened for the rhythm he had felt whenever they worked together in the garden. Lucian did the same. Gold met silver. For an instant both resisted. Do not overpower it, Rowan said. Match me. Lucian relaxed his hand. The colors intertwined and became pale blue. The sixth bell rang. Light spread through the sanctuary, along the roots, and across the entire district above. Rowan felt pressure building, but it was shared now, either man carrying more than the other. Rowan, Lucian said, his voice steady. Stay with me. I am not going anywhere. Together, they adjusted their resonance until the ancient seal answered with a clear, harmonious tone. The seventh bell began, then stopped halfway through its first note. Silence followed. Rowan opened his eyes. He was still standing. So was Lucian. Above them, every flower in the garden opened at once. Silas stared at the restored inscriptions appearing across the walls. You changed the ritual. Rowan shook his head. No. We restored the part history removed. Lucian looked at him, and something unspoken passed between them, deeper than protection and freer than obligation. Then the root gate illuminated again. A hidden line of writing appeared beneath the restored seal. Rowan read it aloud. When sacred life and sacred death reunite by choice, the false ledger will reveal its author. Far above them, inside the death court, the ledger of souls opened by itself. Thousands of altered entries began glowing gold, all carrying the same concealed mark. Elias recognized it immediately. It did not belong to Victor Thorne. It belonged to an organization officially erased more than 2,000 years ago, an order whose symbol represented 3 interlocking realms. By the time Rowan and Lucian reached the death court, every page of the Ledger of Souls was turning by itself. Golden marks shimmered beside thousands of altered entries, some recent, others more than 2,000 years old. Elias stood beside the enormous book with Silas, both staring at the same symbol, 3 circles woven together around a single star. Victor Thorne waited across the chamber. For once, he looked less like an authority and more like a man who had spent his life guarding a secret he never fully understood. The Order of Three Realms, Silas said. Official history claims it never existed. Rowan studied the altered records. Official history also claimed House Elysian disappeared without explanation. Victor lowered his eyes. My family inherited instructions to keep the root gates sealed. We were told that reopening it would destroy the boundary between life and death. Did you alter my record? Rowan asked. No. Victor's answer came without hesitation. I tried to remove your garden because I recognized the Elysian crest. I believed I was preventing the prophecy from continuing. Lucian's voice became cold. Then who sent Rowan here? Victor looked toward the glowing ledger. Someone with access older than the council itself. Rowan examined his own entry again. Now that the false layer had been exposed, another line appeared beneath his transfer authorization. Destination required, Underworld. Purpose, root recognition. They needed me to open something, Rowan said. Silas nodded slowly. The root gate was only the first lock. Lucian turned toward Victor. What is the third realm? Victor's silence answered before his words did. I do not know. My family's oldest instructions contain only one warning: life and death must never reunite, because together they can reveal the forgotten path. Rowan finally understood why someone had spent centuries keeping the two powers separate. Division was not merely tradition. It was a lock. He looked at the ledger entries surrounding his own. Many souls had been redirected, delayed, or incorrectly classified whenever unusual life resonance appeared. The system had protected its secret by treating individual lives as acceptable errors. No institution should become so important that people disappear inside its rules, Rowan said. Lucian looked toward the council officials gathered near the doors. Then the ledger will no longer be controlled by one authority. Victor stared at him. You would rewrite laws older than your office? Age does not make a mistake sacred. Rowan felt a quiet warmth at the words. The feared Alpha had once represented the oldest rules in the Underworld. Now he was willing to question them because he understood their purpose mattered more than their tradition. The council agreed to open the ledger records to independent review, while Elias and Silas began restoring altered entries. Victor surrendered his inherited seals voluntarily. Before leaving, he stopped beside Rowan. If you can return to the living world when your record is corrected, will you? Rowan had been avoiding that question. His apartment, his ordinary life, and the world he remembered still mattered. But so did Margaret watering flowers before dawn. So did the souls who had discovered peace beneath the ancient tree. And so did Lucian, who had never once asked Rowan to stay. Later, they stood together inside the garden. Your corrected death date has been removed, Lucian said. The passage home may reopen soon. Rowan looked at him. Do you want me to leave? Something vulnerable crossed Lucian's face before centuries of discipline concealed it. What I want cannot become your obligation. Rowan stepped closer. That was not my question. Lucian was silent for several seconds. I want you to stay. But only if staying is your choice. Rowan smiled softly. Then I choose to stay until we learn who manipulated the ledger and why. Lucian's expression warmed. Rowan added, After that, I will choose again. That is how choices work. The ancient tree suddenly rang like a clear glass bell. Its roots illuminated beneath their feet, forming the symbol of the three interlocking realms. A hidden pathway opened under the garden, leading deeper than the root gate. At its entrance, golden words appeared in a language Rowan somehow understood. The Lost Prince has restored life and death. The third realm may now remember his name. The pathway beneath Rowan's garden remained closed for the next several months, and for once, Rowan decided a mystery could wait until the world above it was ready. The Underworld had more immediate work to do. With the false entries exposed, Elias and Silas reviewed thousands of soul records, while the council replaced the old secretive system with one that required multiple independent keepers to approve any change to the ledger. Victor Thorne surrendered his inherited authority, and, to Rowan's surprise, volunteered to help identify every rule his family had preserved without understanding. Rowan did not forgive centuries of deception simply because one man cooperated, but he believed accountability mattered more when it created something better than punishment alone. His little garden changed too. The original 6 wildflowers spread around the ancient Elysian tree, and souls began bringing seeds formed from their happiest memories. A grandmother remembered lavender from her childhood porch. A baker remembered rosemary growing outside his first shop. A young teacher remembered sunflowers taller than she had been as a child. Under Rowan's sacred life resonance, those memories became living plants. The garden was eventually named the Sanctuary of Passing, a place where souls could rest before continuing their journeys. Rowan refused every suggestion that he should take an Elysian throne. "A lost prince is still a person before he is a title," he told Silas. Instead, he accepted the role of keeper of living memory, preserving the forgotten stories that official records had once erased. Lucian remained the death god, still imposing enough to quiet an entire court simply by entering it, but the garden revealed parts of him no title ever had. He learned how much water lavender needed. He repaired benches before Rowan noticed they were loose. He even began greeting new souls without being reminded. One evening beneath the silver-green branches, Lucian stood beside Rowan while pale blue lights drifted between the flowers. "The passage to your human world is available again," Lucian said. Rowan had known the moment would come. "And if I leave? You will live the life that was taken from you. And if I stay?" Lucian was quiet. "You will have a place here for as long as you choose it." Rowan smiled. "You are very careful never to tell me what you want." Lucian looked at him then, without the distance of the death god or the authority of an alpha. "I want mornings when you complain about the soil. I want to hear you argue with ancient laws. I want this garden to keep giving me reasons to discover things I thought my realm had lost." His voice softened. "And I want you here. Not because Sacred Life chose you. Not because House Elysian chose you. Because I did." Rowan felt golden warmth gather in his palm. "Good," he said. "Because I choose you too." When their hands met, gold and silver became the familiar pale blue of balance. Nothing commanded them. No prophecy forced the moment. Their bloodlines had opened a door, but trust had taught them how to walk through it together. Rowan chose to remain while keeping the restored passage available, because freedom meant a choice could be renewed rather than made once forever. Then, on the first anniversary of his arrival, something unexpected grew beside the original 6 flowers. A single seed from Rowan's old coat, one that had never sprouted, opened beneath the Elysian tree. Its stem was white, its leaves silver, and its flower contained 3 colors, gold, silver, and a deep blue Rowan had never seen in either realm. The moment he touched it, the entire garden became silent. The sealed pathway beneath them awakened. Lucian appeared beside Rowan as ancient words formed around the tree. "First Prince of the Third Realm," Rowan read. Lucian's expression changed. "There has never been a third realm." The flower opened completely. A distant sound answered from somewhere beyond life and death, not a bell this time, but thousands of voices speaking one forgotten name. Rowan suddenly understood the most unsettling truth of all. Someone had not sent him to the Underworld because they wanted him gone. They had sent him there because only the Lost Prince could reunite sacred life and sacred death. Beneath their feet, the second gates slowly began to glow. Rowan looked at Lucian. Lucian offered his hand. Rowan took it. Whatever waited beyond that door, either of them would enter as master and servant, god and subject, or alpha and possession. They would enter as equals. Then the third realm spoke again, and this time Rowan understood every word. "Welcome home."